It's that time of year once again, ladies and gentlemen. Baseball season is right around the corner as it is the beginning of March. Spring training has been going on for a couple weeks now, and I'm going to sit down here and give my 2025 MLB standing predictions, and I'm going to start things off in the National League, and then tomorrow I will be going to the American League. I'll give my seeding predictions, but not World Series predictions for each league, as it's just way too early in the season to do that. I usually have a good idea of what teams are going to be in the World Series around mid-season, so without further ado, these are my National League predictions. I'm going to start things off in my division, the NL Central, and I'm going to go from last to first as I normally do. So, I'm not going to waste any time with this. Last place, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, I don't even need to say anything else about this team. You got Andrew McCutchen returning, who's 1,000 years old, and then you trade for Spencer Horwitz for Luis Ortiz. Cleveland absolutely fleeced us on that deal. And then you take a look at what they did with the offseason and free agency as well. Connor Joe and Brian De La Cruz are both gone. Marco Gonzalez declared free agency. Aroldis Chapman's with Boston now. Edward Olivares and McKinney are both in free agents as well. And then on top of that, they did next to nothing but hire Matt Haig as the hitting coach, who had a mediocre offense in Toronto. So that's really no upgrade over the atrocity that was Andy Haynes. And they also got a pitching assistant, which is fine, but when you have no offense, it just kind of cancels things out right there. Then you take a look at the team. Henry Davis is a bust. We have a massive hole at first base still. Brian Hayes is an injury-prone bum who's overrated and he can't hit. That Gold Glove is looking more and more like a fluke. His bat sucks, and it really regressed as the season went on last year. Second and short are still incredibly bare. I'd argue that they're even bigger holes than first base right there. You got Spencer Horwitz, who they traded for, knowing that he has injury history, and wouldn't you know, he's already hurt. I don't even care if he's expected to return. He has injury history. Tommy Pham and Andrew Heaney still exist, and yet our dumbass GM traded for them, or they at least signed them. You got O'Neal Cruz, who's an absolute bust. I don't give a crap what any Pirates fan says. He's a bust, okay? He can't field, and he strikes out 1,000 times. He was a top 5 leader in strikeouts last year. And they got Adam Frazier back, which I probably would have loved about maybe a half decade ago. But he's just nothing but, his value is so diminished right now. You know, that's all there is to it. In short, this franchise did the bare minimum with improving the team. I honestly see no improvement with this team whatsoever. They had strong starts to 2024 and 23, and guess what? They completely fell on their face as the season went on. I have no hope. I have no faith in this team, okay? If they can fool me twice in a row, they're not going to do it again, all right? That's on me for buying into the hype and not remembering who I cheer for, okay? It's just going to be another miserable year. Pirates in last place, so I'm sure that they'll get off to another strong start. Everyone will ooh and ah over it. They'll do something stupid at the trade deadline, like inexplicably buy again, and before you know it, they're going to be well out of contention. But they're not fooling me this time. Pirates are in last place. As long as Derek Shelton is here, they're finishing in last. Now, in fourth place, I got the Chicago Cubs finishing in fourth. I know a lot of I know a lot of people are pegging them to finish higher in the standings, but I'm going to pump the brakes on that a little bit simply because they are prone to collapsing in September. And you take a look at what they did in the offseason. They got a utility man, for the depth right there, and they sent Matt Davis down. They sent Matt Mervis down to Miami for a top 100 prospect. Then, of course, the big one, they traded for Cody Bellinger to the Yankees for a righty reliever, and they traded for Kyle Tucker. That was a great addition right there. They traded for Eli Morgan. They DFA'd Miles Mastroboni. David Bodie is in free agency. Kyle Hendricks as well. and they really needed to address the bullpen, and they really haven't done so much this offseason. Overall, you look at the Cubs, they got talent, and I think this is definitely a team that'll be in the playoff talks throughout most of the season, but I really don't know how far they can go. This is just a pretty mediocre team, in my opinion, and for the past couple of seasons, the Cubs have barely gotten over 80 wins, so I think that's where I'm going to put them at right now. This is a 500 team, in my opinion. 81 and 81 is probably my prediction for the Cubs. Okay, I'm not giving exact record predictions, but that would be my record prediction for the Cubs. In third place, the St. Louis Cardinals. Yeah, I know a lot of people are saying they're going to finish last and they're going to be one of the worst teams in baseball and it's a reset year for them, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? It's the Cardinals. All right? I can't stand them. They're my most hated team in baseball, but I also know that they always pull a random run out of their ass when they have absolutely no business doing so. I mean, take a look at 2006. Well, the Cardinals had a talented team in 06. Yeah, that's true, but they only won 83 games that year and they won the World Series. So why should I believe that just because everyone is saying that they're going to be a terrible team this year? I mean, everyone said they were going to be terrible last year, and for a little bit they were in the playoff picture, okay? I mean, yeah, they did lose Paul Goldschmidt, and they've been very quiet other than that, so that indicates it's going to be a reset year for them. But, like I said, it's the Cardinals. It's like the Pirates. They can't fool me. Anytime you think they're dead and buried, they just find a way to, be relevant. And I just expect that for St. Louis. I don't know. I'm not fully on board with saying that, yeah, they're going to be a bottom-tier team in the league this year. And I'm definitely not on board saying, yeah, they're still a contending team. So that's why I'm putting them smack dab in the middle, third place in the NL Central. Second place, I am going to drink the Kool-Aid a little bit and say the Cincinnati Reds actually take second place in the NL Central this year. I love the Terry Francona hire. Taking him out of retirement and him taking a job in the other city of Ohio, I thought that was a great move and a great hire right there for the Reds. Terry Francona definitely brings a winning culture wherever he goes. I mean, take a look at what he did in Boston and Cleveland. He won the Red Sox their first World Series since 1918, and he won another one 3 years later. He got Cleveland to the World Series, but as you know, Cleveland had a really bad choke job against the Chicago Cubs in the World Series, but Cleveland was a strong team when Terry Francona was manager, and now seeing that the young team that the Reds have down there in Cincinnati and the talent that they have, I really think Terry Francona can really get the best out of these players that they got there. And, of course, getting Gavin Lux from the Dodgers and a lot of pitcher help, too. I think the Reds are in pretty good shape to make some noise in the National League, and that's why I got them taking second place. But I can't lie, the NL Central is still Milwaukee's to lose. Basically by default, but they kind of earn it, seeing with the team that they got. I mean, they get their closer, Devin Williams, to the Yankees. They traded him to the Yankees for Nestor Cortez, and they got a prospect out of that. They signed Rhys Hoskins, but they did lose Willy Adames to free agency. But all around, you still got the Brewers, having Jake Bauers. They still got Joey Ortiz. Christian Yelich had a strong year last year, and he's come back. And Jackson Chourio, he is one of the bright stars in the MLB right now. Overall, I think the Brewers are still good enough to win the division, but make a deep playoff run. That's to be determined, but that's why I still have them winning the National League Central. Shifting gears to the NL East, in the basement, I got the Washington Nationals. This is kind of a no-brainer here. They sold at the deadline last year, so that's a big indicator that they're just really resetting things, and it's going to be another long, painful rebuild for them. But hey, at least they'll probably do it right, unlike some other franchises, okay? But selling at the deadline last year is a massive indicator. Now, they did re-sign Josh Bell, but Josh Bell is journeyman status at this point, so I really don't think that is a massive move on their part. Nathaniel Lowe, they got him from Texas for Robert Garcia, but other than that, Washington's been kind of quiet as well. It's just not enough to bring them out of the basement. So Washington, I think, has a really good chance at finishing with the worst record in the National League, but that's going to go to another team, as I'll get into in a little bit. But Washington, they absolutely finished last in the NL East this year. Fourth place, the Miami Marlins. Now, I will cut them a little bit of slack, as last year they did have a lot of injuries, and that's why they were horrendous last year when they were kind of expected to be good. So they did get a little healthier, and they did capitalize off of it with making some moves, with getting Matt Mervis from the Cubs, like I said. But they did lose Luzardo for a lot of prospects, and they traded Jake Berger to the Texas Rangers for shortstops and a young lefty. But if Miami can't stay healthy, it's just going to be another long year for them. But if they can avoid that injury bug, they could probably move up a little bit in the standings, maybe improve on the win total a little bit. But it's hard to compete in the NL East when you got 3 other teams that are playoff teams, and you're still a young team that really just does not have a clear identity. So that's why I got the Miami Marlins finishing 4th in the NL East. Now, the top 3 teams in this division were a little difficult for me to rank the order of, but this is my order. In 3rd place, I'm going to give it to the New York Mets. They made it to the NLCS last year, and they lost to the Dodgers, and the Mets did have a strong year, but I am not sleeping on them by any means. But the Mets in the offseason, they got Jesse Winker on a 1-year deal. Sean Mena is back. They got Clay Holmes as a starter for some reason. I think that's probably one of the bigger reasons as why I docked the Mets down a little bit, but Clay Holmes should probably be a bullpen guy. Frankie Montas, they traded for Jose Siri, and then, of course, the big one, they got Juan Soto for 15 years, $765 million. So that is a lot of money right there for Juan Soto, but if he is productive as the Mets hope that he is, then it's definitely worth it. Hopefully, the guy rakes, and the guy, well, for the Mets' sake, hopefully he rakes, and hopefully that he is just that valuable piece right there, and that he is that one that catapults the Mets to a World Series title. I mean, basically, if the Mets win a World Series with that Juan Soto deal, then no one's complaining about it. So that's just my takeaway with it right there. But yeah, the Mets, they're still a solid team, and I think that they're still going to be right there in the NL, but I think they take a tough 3rd as far as the NL East goes. 2nd place, I'm giving it to the Atlanta Braves, and in the offseason, they traded Jorge Soler to the Angels for Griffin Channing, and they did land Jerickson Profar. Other than that, they didn't really do much. One positive I can say about the Braves is that they are getting Ronald Acuna back. He missed a lot of last year, so maybe that's why Atlanta finished a little bit lower than a lot of people would think. But, Atlanta, they're still a strong team. They're still going to be there. They still got really good pitching. They still got a prolific offense, and I really don't think Braves fans have too much to worry about. And I think they're going to be right there in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the playoffs and competing for the division title. But I think they take a tough 2nd. And winning the NL East for the 2nd year in a row, I got the Philadelphia Phillies. This may be the most complete team in the National League, and it's not hard to see why. In the offseason, they got Jesus Luzardo from the Marlins, as I just mentioned, and they got him for 2 prospects. So basically kind of like a bargain right there. They got Max Kepler to the outfield. Jordan Romano, they got him for closer duties. So really just a couple of patch-up work on that roster right there. Philly can really pound the ball well, as they demonstrated basically all year last year. This is just a really strong team right here. A really good team that manufactures runs, and they can swing for the fences as well. I know a lot of Phillies fans, they don't like Rob Thompson as the manager. I really don't see why. I think he's done a phenomenal job in Philly. I mean, he has really, made the Phillies into a really great team. So why they're complaining about him, I don't know why. But this is definitely a team that can probably at least get back to the NLCS. I don't see them having a malfunction in the playoffs like they did last year. So I got the Phillies taking the NL East once again. NL West, last place, no doubt about it, the Colorado Rockies. I got them finishing with the worst record in the National League. They literally did nothing in the offseason, and I really don't see any improvement. They lost 100 games back-to-back seasons. I'm going to say they could probably make it a third this year. Colorado, last place, moving on. Fourth place, I'm going to say the San Francisco Giants take fourth place. Now, they did get Justin Verlander, but that guy's cooked. He's at the end of his career. He's in his twilight. So if the Giants got him during their World Series runs, then that would absolutely strike fear into a lot of people. I mean, think about that. Giants already had great pitching when they won the World Series 3 times since 2010, about a decade ago. Could you imagine if they had prime Justin Verlander during that? Wow. That'd be incredible. But it's a decade later. Verlander's at the tail end of his career. Now it's just, a veteran to the rotation right there. Willy Adames, they did get him for 7 years, $182 million. But really, other than that, they just were kind of quiet as well. Giants were incredibly mediocre last year. They did make a little bit of noise in August, and a lot of people thought that they could probably snag a playoff berth, but then they just kind of remembered that we're the Giants, and they're just a mediocre team. So I really expect more of the same from San Francisco this year. I'm going to say they take fourth place. Third place, I was playing musical chairs with second and third in this division, but in third place, I'm going to say the Padres take third, because they didn't really do much this offseason. As a matter of fact, they lost more than they gained. I mean, it looks like they're relying heavily on the farm this year, while they lost a lot to free agency, including Jurickson Profar and David Peralta, which isn't a negative by any means for the Padres because they still have a really good team, but this is going to be a very risky year for San Diego, knowing that the NL is loaded with talent, loaded with teams that are very much playoff contenders. So if San Diego misses on the playoffs this year, they're really going to look back on it and say that they really should have not lost a lot of those pieces that they did in free agency and not go farm heavy and rely on the future a whole lot. Because when you got, teams like Philly, teams like Atlanta, teams like Milwaukee, teams like Arizona and LA nipping at you, it's just tough to compete like that. So I am going to say San Diego takes a really tough third this year. Second place, I'm going to say the Arizona Diamondbacks take second place. They missed the playoffs last year, but guess what? They are on a mission to get back. To me, they were the best team that missed the playoffs last year. They got Corbin Burns to the rotation. They got Josh Naylor in a nice trade as well. That adds a lot of pop to their offense as well, to an already talented team. I mean, it's just incredible how Arizona was just losing all these games consecutively years ago, and then they make the World Series in 2023 with only 84 wins, but unless you're the St. Louis Cardinals in 06, you're not going to win the World Series with winning 85 or less games. But the fact is, this Arizona team is just a really solid team, and they missed the playoffs because they had a bad September last year. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think they take second place, and they possibly get the first wild card. But let's be honest, winning the NL West is the Los Angeles Dodgers, the defending champions. No explanation needed right here. They just added the Japanese sensation, Roki Sasaki. If I'm pronouncing his name wrong, please correct me down. So that Japanese sensation right there, and they got Tanner Scott, the best reliever in the game, to that already stacked rotation, or to that already stacked lineup, okay? The point is, if the Dodgers win another World Series, they're a dynasty, okay? And they easily have the tools to do that again. They won their second World Series in this past decade. Well, the last 4 years they won a World Series, okay? So they've entered the dynasty talks, and I think one more ring solidifies them as one. So, yeah, LA, They won it, and they somehow want more. So they are easily the best team in this division, and I got them taking that NL West yet again. So here are my seedings predictions in the National League. LA gets the first seed once again. Philadelphia Phillies, I'm going to say they take the second seed. Milwaukee Brewers, I'm going to say they end up with the third seed. And then the wild cards, you have a case for just about any team in the National League, but here are my wild cards in the NL. Arizona takes the first wild card in the National League, as like I said, I'm really high on them this year because they missed out on the playoffs and they built up to get back to making another run. I'm going to say the Atlanta Braves take the second wild card, as I still think they're well equipped to make a deep playoff run. And I got the New York Mets taking the third and final one, as yes, I'm going to say the San Diego Padres miss out on the playoffs, as do the Cincinnati Reds, just because I think those teams are just a little bit better than them. But those are my National League predictions, and stay tuned tomorrow as I'm going to do the American League.